Now, the Trump administration has increased the pressure on Venezuela's left-wing authoritarian leader, Nicolás Maduro. After striking several Venezuelan vessels alleged to be smuggling drugs, the US military is building up its presence off the coast of its Latin American neighbour. The White House says it's protecting the US from so-called narco-terrorists. Skeptics say President Trump's real aim is regime change in Venezuela. Well, it may be that Nicolás Maduro is hoping his traditional ally, Russia, could step in to save him. DW's Sergei Satanovsky reports.
U.S. military power is building up just off the coast of Venezuela. As America strikes Venezuelan vessels in the Caribbean, President Nicolás Maduro is stepping up a public campaign warning against a potential U.S. invasion, like in this viral video.
Imagine there's no heaven.
U.S. media report that behind the scenes, Maduro has asked his authoritarian allies, including Russia, for military help. The talks reportedly involve missiles, defense radars, and aircraft repairs. Russia denies that Venezuela asked for military assistance, but Russia's foreign ministry in its public statements has generally backed Maduro.
Russia has demonstrated unwavering solidarity with Venezuela and is ready to respond to Caracas's appeal, taking into account existing and potential challenges.
Moscow has helped shore up Venezuela's defense before. In 2019, this aircraft brought Russian military personnel to Caracas. Vladimir Ruvinsky of the ICC University in Colombia says that move may have prevented a U.S. invasion back then.
Back in 2019, during the first Trump administration, when Trump said he would do everything he could to remove Maduro, Moscow effectively came to Maduro's rescue. For the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, the US found itself forced to discuss a situation in Latin America directly with Russia.
Experts say that just like 6 years ago, Trump's real target isn't the drug cartels, but removing Maduro from power. Will Moscow step in to shield Caracas from a US invasion this time? Over the past decades, ties between the two countries, including trade, have degraded. In the 2000s and early 2010s, Russia supplied Venezuela with billions of dollars worth of weapons, and they cooperated in the international oil market. But after Maduro took office, that cooperation faded and is no longer a major factor for either economy.
As far as I know, most of Russia's investments have fallen apart. Much of the equipment is basically unusable, half of it was stolen, and there are no specialists left to maintain it.
Even though Venezuela is not only a trading partner for Russia, but also a geopolitical one, the Kremlin shows little interest in offering anything beyond verbal support. Russia's foreign ministry so far denies any possibility of military aid, and state media stress that Venezuela is essentially on its own in its fight.
Venezuela is now holding the line alone. No allies, no support, no one around it. And its situation serves as a warning to others. You can't win a battle by staying on the defensive.
Vladimir Ruvinsky says Russia is unlikely to come to Venezuela's aid because the Kremlin is focused on the war in Ukraine, and because Washington's intentions this time are far more serious.
The situation today is very different from 2019. The US has now deployed a massive force just off Venezuela's coast. So sending, say, a few dozen military technical specialists, as Russia calls them, won't make any real difference.
Still, if Maduro were to flee Venezuela, he could likely count on finding a safe haven in Moscow.
Roxanna Vigil is a security analyst at the Council on Foreign Relations. She specialises in Latin America. Welcome to DW. Let's start with your assessment of the sort of military and political support that Venezuela can realistically expect from Russia.
Sure. So on the one hand, you do have a relationship that, especially since Venezuela came under maximum pressure, U.S. sanctions, there has been, to a certain extent, the relationship has gotten closer, in part because Venezuela has become more isolated and turned to Russia as a key ally. With that said, it has been mostly at the level of rhetoric. You have Russia that invested billions of dollars and loaned billions of dollars to Venezuela years ago, and the return on that investment has not been good because Venezuela has really struggled to pay back those loans.
Right.
And then with regard to the military cooperation that has taken place between Venezuela and Russia, it would be very, very difficult to see a scenario in which Russia sees throwing good money after bad or increasing that military cooperation at this point in time. So my sense is, based on where things are now, the support will remain at that diplomatic level.
Right. So Russia gives Venezuela a vocal support while America... Well, do you actually think that America's menacing off Venezuela's coast will actually turn into anything more active, more kinetic?
The situation is extremely tense, and with the arrival of the largest aircraft carrier in the U.S. fleet, it certainly does escalate the pressure even more. My stance is I believe the president when President Trump says that they are looking at land strikes. I think that is a serious concern, serious option that they're looking at. And my biggest concern is that there hasn't been a stated goal. To date, the mission has been described as a counter-narcotics mission based on the size of the naval deployment that is on the coast of Venezuela and based on the rhetoric of the Trump administration towards Maduro, including calling him narco-terrorism, of course, the indictment that's been in place for years, and the increase in the bounty. And of course, today, the foreign terrorist organization designation of the Cartel de los Soles, which the Trump administration claims is a cartel headed by Maduro, that went into effect today. So all this rhetoric plus the deployment points to some Venezuela objective, but the Trump administration has not articulated what is the end goal. What is the policy objective with regard to Venezuela?
Let's presume that the end goal is some form of regime change. When you speak to Venezuelan opposition leaders, they welcome this Trump intervention. They say that they are ready, willing and able to take over if Maduro is removed. But if Maduro is removed, does it necessarily follow that a US-friendly, population-friendly, non-corrupt government will take his place?
My assessment is that a U.S. military regime change would be a mistake. It would set up the opposition. It would weaken the opposition. Right now, the opposition is at a high point. They have the support of the people. They claim to have the support of the military. That will have to be seen. But there is a long history of U.S.-backed regime change going poorly. And the opposition needs a strong mandate to see a transition to democracy. That will not be a strong mandate. There are huge security problems in the country, in addition to the military, which is very corrupt, and many in the military are involved in drug trafficking. You also have a situation along the Colombian-Venezuelan border where there are many different armed groups. And on top of that, you have criminal groups, you have prison gangs. It's a very complex security situation. And of course, the tense humanitarian and political crisis that the country has been undergoing for over a decade. That all equals anything but a smooth day after if there is a U.S.-imposed regime change.
Thank you so much for talking us through that, Roxanna. Roxanna Vigil from the Council on Foreign Relations.
My pleasure.
Let's take a closer look at that with DW correspondent Oscar Schlenker, who has reported from Venezuela for many, many years. Oscar, what kind of support can Maduro expect then from Moscow in this crisis?
Well, we are seeing that Russia is much more careful about expressing support for Maduro than before, since they have their own negotiations with Trump administration. And we have seen how effective that has been in favor of Russia with the new peace plans to end the war in Ukraine. However, Maduro's administration made public a letter Putin sent Nicolás Maduro for his birthday yesterday, stating his unwavering support for their strategic partnership, which was signed in May. Now, authorities in Venezuela are quick to make these shows of affection public, much more than the Kremlin these days. And that is something to think about in the current crisis that we're seeing.
Now, what is Russia gaining by supporting Venezuela?
Well, Venezuela is a geopolitical gem in the region, and I think Russia understands that very well. Once the U.S. began to retreat from Venezuela as an ally and partner some 25 years ago, Russia began filling that void in Caracas and serves as a platform to have presence in the region and access to other countries in South America. Now, in terms of oil production, I think Russia sees Venezuela as more of a competitor than a commercial partner. And as a competition, it's good to have the upper hand with presence in the region.
Now, is Russia Maduro's only remaining lifeline, or does he have other foreign partners who would support him in case of a U.S. intervention?
Well, similarly as in Russia, China has expressed concern over the military deployment in the Caribbean. But if they would stick their neck out for Venezuela in this crisis, it's very unclear. Now, China has also a trump card under their sleeve. And as for Venezuela's neighbors, Brazil's President Lula also recently said in the G20 meeting that he has concerns of a U.S. invasion in the region and plans to talk to Trump about it, but has also criticized Maduro, just like Colombia's President Petro, who recently said he does not support Maduro, but he's against any attack from the U.S. in the region. Only Cuba and Nicaragua have expressed support, total support for Maduro in this crisis.
Now, can you give us a sense of how ordinary Venezuelans perceive this massive U.S. military buildup in the region and Maduro's appeals to Moscow?
Well, many Venezuelans feel helpless, really. They feel they're in the crossfire between an authoritarian regime that commits crimes against humanity, as we have seen, and a military superpower that has had no sympathy towards Venezuelan immigrants in U.S. territory. There is real fear in Venezuela right now because as pressure mounts against Maduro, his administration has been much more repressive and violent towards the opposition, journalists. Even comments on social media have been addressed with prison sentences. There's over 1,000 political prisoners right now behind bars. And the unpredictability of Trump administration has also everybody on edge. Commercial flights have stopped flying to Venezuela yesterday. So that has people very nervous right now. Know if there will be a military strike in Venezuela, or if Maduro is able to strike a deal with Trump, which could also be a possibility. That could also happen.
VW correspondent Oskar Schlenker there. Thank you very much, Oskar.